Thanks so much for staying with us. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria right here on Cool TV. Now, last week, it was a week of controversies, of course, as several banks, discount houses, and the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria complied with the directive from the Central Bank of Nigeria to have the names of their loan defaulters published in newspapers with effect from this August. That was last week. The amount involved is allegedly around 13 trillion naira. Now, we do know some have come out to say that they are not involved, they are not members of any board of directors, they've never owned any of these companies, that their names were erroneously placed on this list, and some have even sued. But we're going to go back to the very beginning of this. The CBN's directive, was it even the wisest option or choice for the CBN, and how else can we get these monies back? To discuss this, we have with us in the studio Barr.Chukwuma Eaeala, and he's going to be joining the discussion this morning. Good morning, Barrister.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Let's just start, because initially we have also discussed the method in which this happened in the terms of the CBN giving that directive that the list of the defaulters should be published. Now, what's your thought on that? When the directive was announced, when these people started the process of putting together those who owed them money, what was your initial reaction to that directive?
Yes, my initial reaction is how would they go about it, considering the banker-customer confidentiality relationship. Because the basic law or the basic things involved in the banker-customer relationship is that you don't in any way disclose my financial status to a third party. However, there are some conditions. For any law, there will be exceptions.
Yes.
And when we looked at the exceptions, it says you can disclose by compulsion of law. If the law requires you disclose the relationship, or the financial status or financial lodgements of a customer, if the law requires it, you must, especially when you come to issues of crime.
But that comes under typically a subpoena from the courts or direct.
Yes, certainly,
Yes.
certainly, yes. There would be either a magistrate or a judge who will authorize such. You will also be thinking of disclosure under the duty to the public interest. If it is in the interest of the public that it be disclosed. Again, this time around, there will also be an imprimatur of the courts to do that. But the next area becomes disclosure under the bank's own interest. There are 4. And you would also have disclosure under the customer's approval. So these last 2 becomes an area in which the bank can use to say, we're going to disclose your financial dealings with us, including your indebtedness to us, and then disclose it to the third party. The third party in this case includes the newspaper houses or the media houses.
And the public.
And the public. Now, the banks are acting under the CBN authorization, in quote. The question becomes, can they really act under the CBN authorization? Under which law? Or would they go under, the banker-customer relationship has dated far into the 18th century, 19th century, until you come, we follow the Commonwealth law, because under Britain all along, all of us are following the same type of legal system. And the same banking laws they have, they are the same things we have. The interpretations they give to banking laws becomes the same interpretation we give to our own laws. So then the Tonia case came up, where Tonia sued the bank in England. These 4 principles were brought out under which a bank can disclose.
Now, in terms of this disclosure, we've made mention, because it's an ongoing discussion. It's a very big controversy. Now, in the early days of Sanusi's regime as governor, they attempted the same thing. This was in 2009. But the list came out under the CBN. And many people, of course, did not believe in it, and, all the normal political noise that was made. But this time, the CBN sort of backed away. They've given themselves some distance. This list comes from the banks, the ones who will be the primary parties in knowing who owes them and who doesn't. So do you think that the CBN learned its lesson in 2009 and has now pushed it to the primary parties involved?
Yes, I think it's also an issue of liability. If the CBN publishes the wrong information, they will be liable. So it has to be pushed back to the banks. Because it's the banks that have real information of who actually owes them. you know. So, and that is why we're having these issues. You know, Nigerians are now only saying, I am not owing you. That is, I mean, some of the people that were named, they said, I am not owing you. Provide evidence that I am owing you. This is the stage we are now into. So, and that was what the CBN was running away from, because Bank A may provide information, say that Chukwuma is owing, say, the bank. And the CBN will publish, and it turns out to be wrong information. Now, when you have given the public or a third party such wrong information, you're not protected under any of the exceptions.
So, you know. Okay, now we know that people are already suing. For example, Abike Dabiru is suing. Well, now my question is, can't we just hold these banks liable? For example, we know a lot of these papers have reported these things just as they receive them from the bank. Can't we hold just the banks liable? Do we attach these media agencies that have reported this as well? Are they also liable for libel, as it would seem?
No, ordinarily, the banks, or rather the media houses, are supposed to get letters of indemnity from the bank before publishing. Indemnity to the extent that if, for instance, you have given a libelous information, you know, you would, whatever claim against me, you know, you will be subrogated in that claim. If the media houses do not get that and hides under the, just like you see a headline, Dabiri and others, it will be libelous if Dabiri is not owing them. But because the newspapers would have an indemnity from the banks, the bank that released such information, it means that when the media house is sued, because the primary person you're going to sue will be the person who actually caused the publication to be made. Now let him now say, this is the person that gave me the information, and that is where they will now continue.
Okay, it's a tricky subject matter, and we'll get more into the issue of the name and shaming. Some believe it's unorthodox and unprofessional, and others think this is the only way to go for the banks and the economy to recoup their losses. But we're going to take a quick time out. Victor Orororo is standing by to give you News Express right here on Good Morning Nigeria. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and our guest, Barr.Chukwuma Eaeala, is still in the studio with us. And we're talking, of course, the recent directive by the CBN for banks, banking loan houses, and the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria to declare their defaulters and debtors to the public. Now, one thing I did find interesting is that there are some who have just refused to pay over a number of years. But apparently, statistics of the bank debtors show that those affected are the big borrowers, who are less than 1% of the borrowing population, but which actually hold over 70% of the total 13 trillion naira in bad loans. Now, you were talking about some of the percentages of what is performing and non-performing. Can you break that down for us quickly?
Yes, our understanding is that the total loan portfolio is 13 trillion. And then 30% of it, about 30% of it are non-performing. And these are the people they are actually publishing their names.
So that means the remaining 70 are being serviced, or?
Yes, they are being serviced.
Okay.
You know, they're still very heavy, but they are being serviced.
Okay.
So their names would not necessarily be found
on
the pages of the newspapers. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm wondering now, we know that there are certain methods for recovering debts, for recovering loans. This name and shame one, is it part of it actually? Is it? I know the banking and other financial institutions should provide for modes of regulating recovery of debts by banks, but I'm wondering, naming and shaming, is it really something that is listed as part of this?
And will it
procedure?
bear fruit?
I think it will bear fruit, but it's not really, legally speaking, part of it. It's for me, another side to getting it done. And that is in breach of the customer-banker relationship. Now, but I think because of the peculiar situation we have in Nigeria, if we look at the public interest, that these loans belong to people, this money belongs to depositors, and we need to do something. So we can actually come under the public interest rule to still name them. But I think the banks should have been thinking a bit more. They would have been wearing their thinking cap earlier. Part of the contract they would have signed with the borrowers would be that if you don't pay us, this is what we are going to do. So that there is already an implied consent of the customer.
That's true.
To this. But they did not do that. More also, Because some of the people that are owing also colluded with the bank top officials. So this is an area where we think in the public interest, the government should have also investigated. You know, the former governor of the CBN also did so, tried to find out some of the chief executives of banks that colluded with these people.
True.
Because most of the big loans you're looking at, they were largely unsecured.
Okay, now you
And
said...
given at very low rates.
And not, yes, given and sometimes almost no rates.
At all.
Yes.
Wow.
But they were highly unsecured.
You're saying that you think this would yield fruits. We know that this system, this isn't just the first time it's been employed. It's been employed before. And the last time it didn't yield as much fruit. So what do you think that they would do, that they are doing differently now, that would ensure that this time around the naming and shaming would yield fruits?
I'm not sure there's any day that they paid up adverts to publish the names. I'm not sure they ever did that. What happened was that they said they were going to name, and they did some namings, you know, it became more of rumor than actual publication. But this time around, I think for the first time, we saw maybe in 1 or 2 pages, you see names of companies that are owing, the amount they are owing, the directors of the company, or people associated with the companies. So this is what we have seen. And I think if they continue that way, because 2 things it will help us do is that some of these people, they go to bank A, collect money, go to bank B, collect money, go to bank C, collect money.
A?
Yes. No, sometimes they won't even pay A.
They just collect.
Yes, they collect A, collect from B, collect C, collect from D, and use it to send their children overseas, use it to send their girlfriends or their lady friends overseas, and then buy buildings and houses for them in US, Dubai, and other places.
Okay, now one of the areas I want us to look at as we start wrapping up is the due diligence that the banks did. Now, as we said, the former House of Representatives member, Abike Dabiri, is suing. Thursday, she filed the suit in court, I think about 400 or 500 million. But you wonder, when banks know that they're naming some big names, even little names, you wonder how careful and how very diligent they were in their research and then in finally publicizing the list of names. Now, where do you think it might have gone wrong to get the wrong names out there, to get the people who are not apparently involved or reportedly not involved in the long run?
Is our approach to work. We don't have the right approach to work. Take, for instance, our firm is one of the recovery agents for banks. And sometimes you see that there will be incomplete documentation. There will be a situation where you see that the customers are not where you think they are. And sometimes some of the loans are heavy. You think somebody is owing 10 million or 50 million or 30 million, and the bank do not know, or some of the banks do not know where exactly the office is situated. Sometimes names will mumble, you know. Somebody will say, oh, no, I didn't collect money at all. How did these names fly into their records? So I think we Nigerians that are working, we are also part of the problem. Because some of those things, many of them are not really perpetuated by the CEO. They are by you and I that are working at as branch manager or as chief operating officer of a branch or of, at the head office. So it's problems that we should, and that is why I think also the banks should act, because before you publish people's names, if I were them, I would get a compliance officer who will say, please let me have details of this. Where did he sign? If somebody is merely, take for instance, you want to give loan to company A, and you find out that a big fish is a director of that company A. Does she know or he know that that company is applying for loan? If he knows or she knows, why don't you get him also to be part of the signatory?
But part of the issue also, I remember one of the people who came out and said he doesn't owe any money, said he was just a nominal director. His friend opened, wanted to make sure all the CAC papers were complete, asked him to be a director in the company, and he said yes, loaned his name, and now his name is also being published. So that's another issue. I think that's an issue on a personal level as to how you personally also allow your name to be joined to certain things. But Barrister, we have to wrap up because we know you are very busy. But finally, what's the way forward? Where do we go from this? What's the expectation in this naming and shaming saga in the financial sector right now?
No, I think they should continue, but they should be more careful. But I think also that we should see how the judiciary and other stakeholders will help. But more importantly, if the security agencies will also help in tracing where this money are sent. it will help us. And that's also the properties they have, some of them that did not make their ways into collateral. So if the judiciary will be able to dispose with these cases within a shortest period of time, so that you can go after their assets and whatever they have, you can secure, judgments against them. And I think, but then we may also be faced with another issue of documentation from the banks, because sometimes it's not
complete,
anything to
as you
write
may mention.
about. Yes.
All right, Barrister, we'll definitely have you back as this continues to develop. And definitely, I'm interested in seeing how the court case with those who are suing some of these banks and newspapers plays out. Barr.Chukwuma Eaeala has been with us discussing the naming and shaming policy, the CBN directive, and the banks that went ahead to shame and name some of their defaulters and debtors. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. A quick timeout. We'll be back right after this.
So, did you like what you just saw? I know you did. It's very simple. If you want to see more, just subscribe to our channel right now.